To the Business Rebellion, the podcast for founders and leaders who know something about the way business is done doesn't sit right anymore. Not because they're failing, but because the model is broken. We've talked this season about wealth, structure, leadership, property, and leverage, but none of it works if you can't sell. And yet sales is a place where so many value-led founders feel the most discomfort. Today's conversation is about sales, but not pressure, not scripts, not tactics. This is about ethical, grounded sales, clarity over coercion, confidence without manipulation. This is sales without manipulation. My guest today is Pete Solway. Over the last 15 years, Pete has founded multiple businesses and built sales teams from scratch across previous ventures. He has raised over $650,000 and he hit 135% of revenue targets. In 2021, he founded Founder Sales Solutions with a clear mission to help small business owners make more sales, reduce first sales hire failure rates, and actually achieve the goals and personal vision they set out to build. What I respect about Pete's approach is that he treats sales as leadership, not performance. And that aligns beautifully with what we will talk about here. Pete, welcome to the Business Rebellion.
It's good to be here.
Excellent. So for people who don't know your work yet, what usually brings business owners to you around sales?
Oh, couple of things specifically in setting up the foundations of sales in their business, right? So smaller business owners who are out there, they're passionate, they've got a thing that they do, they're doing really well at it, but they need to be able to sell more. Through to the founders who are like, okay, I've kind of got something going here and I want to hire a salesperson to be able to scale the business, to not have so much revenue reliance on myself, and then ultimately turning into a sales team, right? And in those early teething phases as well, if you've got 1, 2, maybe 3 salespeople and something's not quite landed yet, something's not quite working, we're the experts who come in and fix up those foundations, right through from founder selling to those first kind of 1 to 4 salespeople and getting all the foundations right so that you're in a place that your team can take it forward and really propel into growth.
Oh, that's really important because it's so often that they, so many times we hear founders, yeah, but I tried to hire a salesperson and it failed terribly, right? How many times have you and I both done that?
Many. The story that scares me the most, I spoke to a founder, he'd hired 20 salespeople and kept 1. Right? Like, might be time to look in the mirror, yeah? That's not a reflection of the salespeople aren't good enough. That's a reflection of you don't have the right things in place in your business to support salespeople to be successful. And you got lucky 5% of the time.
Yeah. That one was smart enough to work it out for themselves.
Yeah. And you don't want to be playing a 5% success rate, when it comes to hiring your first salespeople, because time, effort, energy, opportunity cost, like it stalls your business for such a long period of time getting it wrong.
Yeah, it certainly does. Not to mention, you still got to pay them while they learn, right?
Yep.
That doesn't go away. So what are founders most uncomfortable about when it comes to selling, do you think?
It's pretty varied based on their background, but one common thing that I see, particularly with founders who don't have a background in sales or sales leadership, often they're a technical expert, they're a product expert, they're passionate about a particular topic in an industry and can see an opportunity, those sorts of things, right? And they come from this mindset of, well, if the product is good enough, then it will just sell. So I'll talk about the product, right? And I don't blame them at all, right? If you don't have a background in sales, that's kind of logical and kind of makes sense. And what they kind of get scared of doing is being too salesy or too pushy, right? Because I think everybody in the universe has received a cold call from someone overseas selling them stuff that is completely irrelevant for them, where people are trying to talk over the top of them and be pushy and gross and icky, or they've had experiences where they've bought significant personal investments or made decisions for their business or whatever off the back of being kind of pushed a bit further than felt right for them into buying something. And then it just all blew up in their face and they kind of wish that they hadn't, right? And these founders passionate, empathetic people who have their thing that they want to get out into the world, and they're like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be anything like that. It's like, that doesn't have to be sales. That's what sales has been historically, particularly from movies, from what a lot of what we've seen in the US. Doesn't necessarily have to mean you need to do it in that way in the US either. There are definitely other ways. And so, having been a founder first before I, got as deeply as I did into sales, I really can understand this mindset of where people are coming at with things. And so the thing that I really like to encourage them to think about, you can be a really good salesperson and a really good human at the same time. So first of all, you need to even just open your mind to that's a possibility, that's a thing, right? And if you start from that place and then you start putting in some parameters, and so probably the biggest foundational parameter I put in with founders who are nervous about being that pushy over the top salesperson that they don't want to be, that makes them feel icky and gross. If you can walk away from a deal or an opportunity where you know something isn't a fit for someone, if you really hold true to that and you can go, no, I can sense this is not going to work, it's not the right fit for them, and you stop selling at that instant and you pull back, or if you're not sure, you surface that in the conversation. Hey, you've mentioned this. In my experience, if that's the case, quite often this won't work or whatever. Am I understanding things correctly here, or am I missing something? If you can kind of bring to the surface that genuine doubt or lack of fit, you keep your integrity, because then you walk away when it's not a fit. So you're not bulldozing and pushing people into places they don't want to be. You're also saving yourself time, energy, heartache, because if you sell to people that shouldn't be buying, then you're the founder, you've got to deliver on the thing as well, right? It's your reputation in the market. So if you can bring up, and there is that gap in the middle, right? There's this is a fit, this is not a fit, and there's I'm not sure if this is a fit. Get curious. If you can bring curiosity into I'm not sure if this is a fit for you, people will respect that. And you'll have an honest, real conversation to work out, is this a fit or is it not? Or what things need to be in place for this to be a fit, and we should talk later, or actually you should talk to somebody else because they're going to be a better fit for you. And if you have a real honest, in integrity type conversation, you'll feel good, your reputation will stay intact, and you'll deliver better and better outcomes for people that are actually meant to be doing business with you, and you feel good about sales.
Yes, I love that. That's so important. We've had that conversation so many times. So, you've hit the nail on the head with all that baggage that comes with sales, right? So, and you've covered off a lot of the things that people see getting confused sales with manipulation. So what's the difference between actually influencing someone and pressuring?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it does start to get a little bit nuanced, but I'm glad I gave the frame I just did before, right? Which is that there's the definite, no, this is not a fit. There's the definite, yes, this is a fit. Now, if it's a definite, yes, this is a fit, and they're getting in their own way because of fear, because of actually a lack of understanding of their problem, right? Oftentimes in sales, what happens, the person or the business that you're solving the problem for, this is the first time or one of the first times they're experiencing this problem, or they've never actually experienced a solution before. Yeah. You spend your whole working life solving this exact problem. Yeah. So that gives you a point of reference, a point of context on the world about solving this problem, the realities of the solution, how they can go about making an informed, good decision about solving their problem. Yeah. And so if you're able to use that insight where it's like, okay, yes, this is obviously a good fit for them, they're just getting in their own way or they don't understand, then you can educate through that conversation. Yeah. And I think that's the first place that you can think about this as being influence as opposed to manipulation. Yeah. If you can use that as an education frame for those that are obviously a fit. Now, there's the bucket in the middle, which is we're not sure if this is a fit yet. That place can be really good to go into, again, with curiosity and open conversation to kind of explore if this would be a good fit, right? Now, there's a really good book called The Challenger Sale. It's been called a sales methodology, but in a really simple sense, it's challenging whether people are operating from the right frame of reference on their decision making. Yeah, if they don't understand all of the context around the way they're making the decision, or oftentimes, particularly when I've been selling into corporates and larger businesses, they've got so much pressure with the volume of work and things that they have to get done. They don't sit there always and go, is doing this thing now or that thing now or that thing now the best use of my time to help me achieve my goals and my KPIs, within my business? And not only that, they don't always have the full context to even make an informed decision on that if they did have the time to sit down and think about all of those things. So if you use like a challenger style of approach to influencing them rather than manipulating them, right? In terms of they're thinking about things in this way, this is their current view on the world. If you ask questions to help them realize quite possibly there's a better way of doing things, that's the process of influence. Particularly if you're doing it by asking questions, right? I said that a bit casually, but I want to zero in on that, because if you can ask someone questions to help them realize if something's a good fit or a different way of thinking about something or a problem or a solution or whatever it might be, so that it is a good fit for them, then they're making the decision on your own. You're just guiding them down a path. The manipulation, I guess version would be, oh, you need to do this or you're not good enough, or, this terrible consequence will happen and you have to do this, and like kind of boxing them in against their own psychology or things that they've said, kind of using it against them. That's the manipulation version that we see out there in the market. And if you're genuinely coming with curiosity, asking questions to help them evolve their frame and their thinking about how they see the problem and how they see the solution that you have, that's ethical influence.
Yep. No, I like that. I think my favorite part is like, we often talk, when you and I talk, I'm like, I don't do sales. I just solve problems, right? All the time. That's my whole thing. I don't do sales. I solve problems, but I'm exactly that. It's all about, I just ask so many questions to find out exactly what's going on, so that I know the problem that we're trying to solve. And if it's me, it's great. If it's not, it doesn't matter. I probably know the person who can. And that's when I, you did speak to Pete or, whoever it may be. So I think that that's a really important thing, because at the crux of it, sales is really just helping someone. Like you're just helping that person. And whether you're helping them find the solution through you or someone else, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And I think people create this idea of what it is in their head, and it turns into this big monster that none of us want to, hang out with.
Yeah, you're just having a chat with another human to figure out if there's something here that works for both of you or not, or
Yeah.
what needs to change such that it would. That's it.
Yeah. I love it. So what kind of beliefs about money or worth tend to sit underneath, that kind of discomfort that we have around sales?
Look, I think you're starting to tap into some things that are very personal to different individuals, and I think it really depends on your own framing and psyche of the world and all of those sorts of things. And if there's genuinely like, beliefs around I don't deserve money or sales is evil or those sorts of things, you might need to go for a little bit deeper help on a personal level than coming to a sales coach. As a sales coach, I can give you those frames around, here's what rules and parameters you can put in place so that it can be ethical. But if you're still not feeling right about that, there's one of two options. Option one is get in the gym. It doesn't feel comfortable to lift the weights the first time you go in there. That big long run doesn't feel comfortable the first time you do it. And the more times that you do it, as long as you've got the right safety in place, right? So in the gym or the running example, you've hydrated yourself, you eat healthy food, to replenish your body and all of those things, right? In sales case, it's like be able to walk away when it's not a fit. If you've got those safety parameters in place, then go to the gym and get comfortable with the thing that started off being uncomfortable. If you literally can't get there, if that's genuinely like, I'm so terrified I can't do that, then you probably maybe business isn't for you, or maybe you need some deeper help elsewhere. I don't think I'm the person to go and solve those sorts of challenges if you've really got some psyche things going on that are holding you back there.
Yeah, but it happens a lot, right? Like, I mean, we all come with those things. So it's not uncommon that we carry baggage, really.
Oh, of course. But when you get in the gym and you see that you can be ethical, and then you can start doing it and you try it just a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit more. Like sales is often a momentum game where, I speak to founders who often say to me, oh, Pete, I can do this outbound stuff or finding leads or whatever, but I find it really draining. So I keep putting it off. But you know what happens if I make them commit to just a small period of that every single week and they know that that's their outbound prospecting time? Guess what? Week 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 16, 25 feel way easier than week 1 because they've been in the gym and they've been doing the thing. Yeah. So my encouragement is get out there, do the thing, and realize that it is a headspace to get into. And if you can build a routine and a rhythm around it, you build that underlying muscle foundation that allows you to start to even enjoy it. And I know that might be a long way away for some founders, but I've genuinely had quite a few founders come to me and say, hey, Pete, can you help me hire a salesperson? I say to them, why? And they say, oh, because I don't like sales. I want to, it's not my thing. And I say to them, well, if you're the founder, if you're the owner, there's a period of time you need to be doing the selling so that you can figure out your unique product market messaging fit. And then we can kind of codify that. And once we've codified that, then you can start handing sales off. But you have to go through this period before you're sticking somebody else in the seat of selling your thing. And what's really interesting is about those founders who said, I just want to hire salespeople so I don't do it. Oh, I reckon 60% plus of them fall in love with sales and realize that it can be done ethically and start enjoying it, and then put off hiring the salesperson longer because they realize how much ROI they're getting from their own selling time. And it's like, what a great scenario. You've now got a skill for life. You put way more cash in the bank before you've gone and hired a salesperson. You now understand how sales is done. So when you hire salespeople, you can call them out if they're kind of full of shit, which can happen. And you've just got a whole new context on the world. And it's a lot more affordable way than trying to throw money at salespeople, train them up when you don't know what you're doing and you're just trusting that they know what they're doing and they don't kind of know what they're doing because you can only afford a mediocre salesperson because you've only got so much cash in it. Like, it's just, I see people lean towards it time and time again because they come from the frame of reference that, well, I'm not a salesperson, I'll get a salesperson and then they'll sell for me and it will just happen. Guys, I want you to know that getting first sales hires is one of the hardest sales jobs out there. If you can be an excellent salesperson, you walk into a big corporate, they've literally got the formula that's like, pick up the phone this many times, say these things, use our brand, use our case studies, talk about it in this way, and you will make this money, right? You go and stick someone who's used to that into, oh, I as the founder don't even know how to sell? Not a chance, right? Like, it really is one of the toughest sales gigs, being that first sales hire. And just because someone knows how to sell does not mean that you are set up for them to sell or that they are a fit. And that's a bit of an art form, and it takes real experience to make good judgment calls on bringing those sort of hires into your business. And obviously at Justified Talent, Kerrie, that's something that you guys do with a lot of testing. And I've seen those test results and the way that increases predictability quite significantly. And also with people like us who've lived the journey, right? I've been the founder, I've been the first sales hire and seen both sides of the coin. So when someone comes in, we can kind of tell if they're actually the right fit for your business, the right fit for being a first sales hire, you're paying them the right amount of money, all of those sorts of things, because it is actually a lot more complex than hire a salesperson. Now I stop selling because I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah. Well, the hardest part of that too is obviously they really do need to work with someone like you to get all that foundation right. Because, if they don't put that money in the bank, then they can only afford a green salesperson. And a green salesperson isn't going to hit the ground running like someone who's really seasoned. And those two price brackets are extremely different for the hire. So working with you first and building that foundation and getting the runs on the board and the money in the bank means that they can actually stretch and invest into the seasoned person who knows how to really close and get it all across the line a lot quicker, instead of trying to train them in sales at the same time.
Yeah, and there really is a thing about seasoned sellers, Kerrie, but I do want to point something out that I see on the other extreme with founders, right? Yeah. Particularly if they've raised money or they've got a bit of cash at bank or they've sold a business previously, they're going for a $200K a year at a really good experienced salesperson, right? You may not need someone that experienced.
Yes.
Yeah. If you build out some of these things, you may get somebody a lot cheaper. This is a little bit of an art form as well, right? I remember uh, Justified Talent actually sent me a lead a while back, and I started working with them, and I put them in a place where they were ready to hire a salesperson. I remember speaking to the founder, and he said to me, Pete, I couldn't fathom paying more than, I think it was 120 or maybe even 130 base salary on a salesperson. He was doing a really, really complex ERP software integrations type sale. And I said to him, there's no point. It doesn't matter how well prepared you are to hire a salesperson. If you stick someone in at 120K base, 90% of the time plus, they're not going to have the experience to be able to actually make the type of sale that you guys are doing, because it is complex and it requires a senior salesperson. I said to him, if we can't afford it, let's put the hire off for a few months, put some more cash in the bank. And then for his business, we had to hire 150K base. I was like, you could maybe get away with 140, maybe with the right person. I just knew that was the level, right? 18 months later, they'd more than doubled the business. They sold the business. He's on a video testimonial thanking me for that specific piece of advice, because he could see, now that he's seen what you get for that price point, that there was no way it was going to work otherwise, And so thankfully we were able to hire that right person through Justified Talent and those sorts of things. But just because in that business they need to hire 150 doesn't mean in yours, right? In other businesses, we might be able to hire an 80 or a 90K or a 120 rep. It depends on what you're selling, who you're selling to, how complex the sale is, how well prepared you are. There's so many factors that go into that, because it is quite a challenging process to get through.
It's an art form. It really is. They're not joking when they say it's an art form.
Yeah.
So when done well, how is sales like an act of service? Like
sales as an act of service. I think it's an interesting way that you frame that question. I think that the way that I want to respond to that is that I've been in sales for a long time. I've been in coaching for a decent amount of time, but there was a point where I hadn't done coaching, but I'd done a lot of time selling. And what was really interesting was how many similar principles were transferable from the skill set of selling to the skill set of coaching. And I do remember one of my really good sales coaches telling me that it's like, you want to be the trusted advisor of your prospects. If you get yourself to a place where your prospects, even if they're not ready to buy yet, they're giving you a call and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or this came up on my radar, or this is going on in the industry. If you can give them informed, intelligent advice that means that they get to that place, you are genuinely providing almost like a consulting service to them. Sure, full consulting services are their own thing and should be paid appropriately and all of those things, right? But if you've got that skill set of advising people to make better, more informed decisions because of your lens on the market, your insights on the problem and the solution that we were talking about earlier, you're genuinely providing an active service for them, and that's how sales can not only be this art form where you make good money and those sorts of things, but it can really help people's lives become better, people's businesses become better, help people get promoted if you're selling them the right thing in an organization that unlocks something for them in their business. If you're going into sales with those types of goals and those types of intentions, again, it's another one of those kind of foundational, let's call it psyche pillars, to put you in a place where you're doing something that's really ethical and helpful.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to that being curious, right? And if it's not the right fit, then you say that. And that's part of that active service, right? Or you refer them to someone who can.
Yeah.
That's, you're not just there just to pitch, which I really like. So you talk about grounded sales conversations. What does that look like in practice?
When I talk about grounded sales conversations, it's the idea of being practical, being realistic, and not overhyped. And that's a style that I personally really like, and often works really well for founders who are coming into sales and feel a bit nervous about it. I do want to frame though a grounded approach to selling works really good for certain personality profiles, right? Speaking a little bit slower, having no kind of hype or any kind of, not using inspiration to sell or hype to sell. There are certain profiles that selling through inspiration and hype can be their secret weapon and can actually be done in a healthy, in a healthy, valuable way. So I don't want to, I guess, throw those concepts out, but often I talk about grounded sales because it's that just having a real conversation with people, Yeah.
And what happens physiologically when someone feels pressured in a sales conversation? What do you see?
They either tend to freeze or want to run away, right? If we look at it at a biological level, right? Like they're like, how do I get out of here? Or they like start giving you answers or saying stuff that doesn't feel very truthful and they're just trying to get off the call, or they're trying to make you happy so that they can, leave you alone and all of those things. But honestly, it doesn't happen that extremely in a B2B situation, because if you are trying to be too pushy and too manipulative and whatever, and someone's an experienced buyer in a business, like they also might just tell you to get lost.
They can see.
Particularly in the Australian market. American market different, but yeah, in Australia, like we don't put up with that.
Just tell you. So how do you hold high standards in sales without resorting to those high closes? And what's the difference between being clear and aggressive in context?
I think high standards, I kind of think you're almost talking about two things. I think high standards is gives me the opportunity to talk about something where oftentimes founders and even like decent salespeople get into this trap where they don't have high standards about themselves in the sales process. They're so used to, I want the sale, so I'll do anything to impress you to get the sale. Yeah. And you need to, as you evolve as a salesperson, you've got to jump out of that to get to one of the next levels in your learning journey. There's a whole range of learning, I guess, skills to learn in sales that as you go up each 20K in salary bracket from 80 to 160K, you kind of go through. This is one of them. And that's to know that you're valuable just as much as the prospect, right? If they're asking you to do things that are unreasonable, if they want some big discount or something that's unreasonable, you need to stand your ground and say no. Or I can do that, but I'll need blah in return, right? This is a two-way street. This isn't a I'm doing the monkey dance for you because you're the puppet master. It's not that. So that's bringing high standards into the mix. What was the other part of the question?
So what's the difference between being clear and being aggressive?
Being clear is just saying it how it is without being pushy. You can say to them, I think this would be a really good decision for you, or I think this would be a really good decision for you. You see the difference in the tone and the way that it's said? It's that flavor of the way that you deliver the message, and you can say it in an open, curious, honest way, or you can say it in a you're an idiot, so you should listen to me kind of way. There's the flavor that comes with the wording is very important.
Tone's so important in selling.
Yeah. But for founders who are early stage or don't have background in sales, like don't worry too much about tone. My advice to you is worry about authenticity and then having your parameters around selling with integrity that I've spoken about earlier in today's conversation. And then you'll be right. If you start obsessing over tone and pausing and like all of these other subtle skills that should be coming on the second, third tier of your journey, as opposed to the first part of your learning, they're not advanced skills, but they're not the foundational things that you're learning from day one.
Yeah. So what happens long term when someone is sold into something they truly love?
I can see the frame that you're asking this question from, which is basically they bought something that they shouldn't have. I think that's. I'll give an answer to that in a moment, but you said like truly aligned with. Someone might feel uncomfortable about buying, but if it's a genuinely good decision based on the information that you have and they have around them, that might actually be a really good thing for them, right? Like that. Not that it was necessarily a sale, but in a way it kind of was. That founder that I spoke about earlier who wanted to spend 120 on his sales rep and I convinced him to spend 150. That was a form of a sale, right? He felt incredibly uncomfortable about that. He didn't feel truly aligned to that decision. He felt aligned enough that I was able to influence him to go there and look at the rewards that came out the back of it. The other side of the coin, where it's genuinely not a fit, or they're just not, like, I also got that founder far enough down the track to have him feel uncomfortable but still buy in. If I had him feel uncomfortable but I'd kind of strong-armed him into the decision, he wouldn't have come into that situation with the right attitude towards the sales rep. He would have been looking for reasons to justify that he'd overpaid the sales rep and that she wasn't good enough and all of those sorts of things. So you've got to get that balance. So we're starting to talk into like some more advanced, things about reading. But if it's genuinely like, oh, like it's probably not a fit, it's probably not going to work out. You can't always tell with 100% predictability how things are going to play out when you sell something, right? That is the nature of businesses and particular problems for particular solutions and all of those things. But if it really is a bad fit, but you were able to convince them to do it, if it's software, well, they'll churn. If it's some kind of other bad decision, well, guess what? They're not going to come back to you. They're not going to tell others about you and give you referrals, which is one of the biggest ways that businesses grow. It's actually one of the pillars that we talk about before we go. So with Founder Sales Solution, we're launching at the end of the month something called the Founder Revenue Code, which is codifying the way a founder sells so that can be used as the foundations for others to start selling on their behalf. If you are if you're selling things that lead to people buying stuff that isn't for them, then ultimately you're not going to have what we call product market messaging fit, which is the precursor to being ready to codify your approach to sales. So product market messaging fit involves that you've got product market fit, so people are willing to pay for what it is that you've got. Then people are willing to book meetings with you in a segment of the market based on the messaging that you've got for them. And if you're going out there and bringing leads in, but you're not getting referrals from customers that you've worked with over time, you don't quite have that product market messaging fit to prove that this has got some legs to be able to scale to the next level. So it's almost like you're shortchanging yourself the ability to scale your business, and you're doing something that's kind of unethical, if you're starting to sell into those situations in particular. So I got a little bit wordy and finicky there because it is a little bit of a complex map, but basically don't sell stuff to people that they shouldn't buy.
No, it just damages your reputation. And that's all you've got.
Yeah.
When it comes down to things, that's all you've got, your reputation. Once that's gone, it's very hard.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between sales confidence and sales performance?
Your perception versus reality. I think like sales confidence. I mean, you do have to have a bit of sales confidence. It does help you to be confident in sales. Yeah. But if we look at where those two frames get a little bit confused sometimes, is when the sales rep comes in and points at the pipeline and says, oh, I'm going to close this and I'm going to close that and I'm going to close that. And then you get to the end of the quarter and none of it's closed, right? That's kind of the difference, that overconfidence and those sorts of things. I think there is a healthy level of confidence to have in sales. And then, there's the reality of what closes and what doesn't, and taking those learnings from it. You have to be quite resilient in sales because you do get told no a lot. You do need to take learnings from that. If you can build yourself into someone who can go out there, be confident, but then also be realistic. And I know through Justified Talents, the testing that you do before you hire a salesperson, one of those things that you test for is how do they balance that confidence that is required to go out there and sell, but also that reality of, is this deal really going to win? And particularly the deeper you go into bigger businesses, right? If you're selling to a consumer versus an SMB versus a big, large enterprise, there's a different kind of level that you need to go with around all of that. And you really do just need that resilience to learn from challenges as they get deeper and more complex, and there's more risks in the buying journey. If you're selling to enterprise, there are so many ways you can lose the deal, even if it's a really, really good deal and you've got the right people in the organization rooting for, buying your solution. Because of compliance, regulatory stuff, procurement, commercial terms, like someone thinks that their job's going to be affected by it. Like there's just so many ways that things can fall over. And so you've got to get that balance between that sales confidence and that, you know what, here's some genuine risks and I need to flip my frame on things and go, well, what are the risks? Not what are all the benefits? And if you can juggle, the better you can juggle both of those, the deeper you can go into selling into larger organizations consistently.
Those large organizations, you can get it all the way down to the wire and then someone on the board goes, oh no, but I know a guy. 18 months, right? I've seen that so many times. So if someone listening genuinely dreads sales calls, what's the first mindset shift you would want them to make?
Well, let's just go back to what we spoke about at the beginning, right? Put your parameters in place so that you can ethically sell, walk away when it's not a fit, and get out there and try it. Just get out there and try it. Like at the end of the day, you're having conversations with people. If you do it in an authentic, earnest, curious way, typically people respect that. You can say, hey, I feel uncomfortable. I feel awkward about asking for this. Like I've got clients of mine that feel really uncomfortable asking for referrals. And it's like at the end of the day, what's actually going to happen if you ask for a referral and they just say, oh, nobody comes to mind? It might be scary because you haven't done it before, but actually think through the real consequences of what's playing out. If the real consequences of you going out there and doing sales are that, you're going to get eaten by a tiger, then, you probably shouldn't do it. But if it's like, oh, hey, you're going to feel a bit uncomfortable, but you've done it in an ethical way and you've done the preparation and you've got your parameters in place, then just give it a go.
And what would you say is like the minimum time frame a week that a founder should be spending on sales if they actually want to get the kind of results that you help them?
That's a really good question. Now, I've been doing this it'll be 5 years in August this year. And thank you. I've noticed a particular pattern with founders, and it's something I think founders, you want to be really cognizant about, because there's so many things that can pull your attention and so many things that are important in the business, right? And I do that a little bit in inverted commas because at the end of the day, if you ain't bring business, if you're not bringing revenue into the business, you don't have a business. Yes. Yeah. So this is sales is definitely one of the biggest priorities. Here's what I've noticed. If a founder dedicates half a day a week, now this is in B2B selling environments. If a founder dedicates half a day a week of time to their B2B sales efforts, probably the business isn't going to go very far in terms of revenue growth and those sorts of things. Maybe they'll keep the lights on. Maybe they'll cruise along. A day a week of selling time, you can start growing, but it'll be by a little bit. You should be able to keep the lights on in that kind of time selling in a week. You should be able to, have those foundations and just kind of chug along. But if you're actually looking to move the dial, if you want growth, and I mean not just like 5% year on year, 10% year on year, I mean like what we call real growth, going from $500,000 to $1 million, going from $1.5 million to 3.3, like they're examples of what happens with our sorts of clients. The thing that I ask them to do before we go into an engagement to work together, find yourself a day and a half a week of selling time. Now, I'm not prescriptive down to the minute to that, but if on average you can genuinely say I'm proactively doing about a day and a half a week of selling time, and you get the right support around it, that can really move the dial for your business, because it allows you to, and I'll give you a little example of something we give to our clients, right? You're juggling so many things in your business. When you've got your blocked out selling time, you want to know exactly what to do in the priority order that it should be done. And so one exercise we often do with founders is, in sales, we break it sometimes down into open, navigate, and close. Yeah, so open's the going out and hunting and finding leads. Navigate is doing the demos, having the conversations with the multiple stakeholders, even towards putting a proposal together. The close is actually getting the signature on the deal, going through legal and procurement and those sorts of things. And so what you can do if you want to get kind of structured and organized about this is put a priority list in each of those buckets of sales: open, navigate, close. Dedicate out, let's just say for a generic sake, you're starting out with your day and a half a week. Well, you've got half a day of open, half a day of navigate, half a day of close, and you've got your list of all the things you should be doing around sales in priority order in those. And then you go, and as a founder, you need to be flexible. Some weeks you've got a whole bunch in the pipeline that you've got to close out. So that close, or, you've got heaps of proposals that you've got to write because, you're in lots in the navigate phase. You do need to flex those up and down, but this is the secret. Don't drop open. This is what happens all the time, particularly in service-based businesses. They're like, oh, we've got all this business. I've got to deliver on all this client work. I'm too busy, blah, blah, blah. And their revenue goes like this. And then they finish delivering and then their revenue goes like this. It just falls off a cliff. I get why it happens, but if you want that to stop happening and you want to keep fit, sales fit, how I was using the gym metaphor before, you've got to commit to a minimum outbound time every week. Now, if your default is 4 hours a week, and when, things are a bit, you've got a bit more capacity because you're not delivering, or you've got more capacity because you don't have a full pipeline, well, that 4 hours goes up to 6 or 7 or 8 hours, for that week. Don't let it go down below like 1 or 2 hours a week. You have to commit to that 1 or 2 hours as if it was a customer meeting that you had to deliver on, with that level of importance, because if you keep in the gym just that baseline level of fitness, that it keeps you up, and that baseline level of momentum, a lot of outbound and lead generation does take time to come through. You can win some deals straight off the back of it, but other times you're planting seeds for winning deals 3, 6, 12, 24, 3 years in the future, and that momentum just cascades over time. So anyway, it was a bit of a long answer, but that day and a half a week, if you can have that as selling time, and I've given the listeners today a little bit of a frame of how you may want to, split that time up, and a bit of an example so they can take that away practically. But yeah, if you're shy of that and you're not able to get that day and a half a week, I think that's a really big business priority for you. And it's something we've talked about before, Kerrie, right? With what you guys do there at Admin Superheroes. Sometimes I'll say to a client, if you're stuck at half a day a week of selling and you just can't get any more time, go and get a fractional COO, or, some help from Admin Superheroes, or, something like that. Go and get some operational support. And I've actually got a specific example of where that completely unlocked things for actually my very first client of Found a Sales Solution. He was doing $300K a year, and he came to me and said, can you help me hire a salesperson? I said, but why? And he's like, well, I'm stuck. I've been stuck here for years. I want to break through in revenue. The business is not really sustainable at this point. Like I need to get to the next level. I said to him, but what if we hire an ops person instead of a salesperson? That'll be 30 grand a year cheaper. Pro rata the hourly rates, all those sorts of things. We put that person into the business, and that bought him his day and a half of selling time per week. And in that time, I think I spent about 2 hours a week with him ish, give or take. Like it flexed depending on the needs of the business each week. And he ended up more than tripling revenues. He cracked $1 million in 6 months of us working together after he'd been stuck there at 300 grand. And that's that founder learning how to sell, building out all of those processes, so that he was in a much more robust place before he looked at hiring a salesperson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one sells like a founder, right?
Pretty much. And founders underestimate themselves too. That authenticity, that background, that this is my baby, I've built this, I can see this in the market, like that comes across in the way that you talk. And that part is not replicable. But the messaging, the things that led people to make rational decisions around buying, the structures, the processes, the connections, all of those sorts of things. Those things can be codified and put into a sales playbook of how it is that your business sells, that other people can start to leverage. And that's how you give yourself the best chance at breaking through from all the revenue being reliant on you and it actually being something that turns into a business that isn't purely revenue reliant on you.
Yeah. What a nice day that might be. I think.
Yeah.
So if you could leave founders with one belief to learn about sales, what would it be?
Sales can absolutely be ethical. It can absolutely be ethical. If you just even open your mind to the possibility or the curiosity of sales being ethical, it changes the world, right? You know, and I might even challenge you just a little bit, Kerrie. Like I think you've totally got the right attitude towards sales, but saying that you're not in sales, like I hear that and I'm like, why would you say that? You're in sales, you're great at sales. Why would you not embrace the fact that you're actually doing sales? And it's because there's something there where it's like you don't want to be perceived as, you know, pushy salesperson, you just solve problems. So you're focusing on the right thing. But at the end of the day, what you're actually doing is selling. And there's something completely ethical about that. And that's okay. And if people can see that, hopefully that's a good example for people. And I apologize for putting you on the spot there as an example, but it's like there is nothing wrong with selling. There is a lot wrong with selling from a pushy, aggressive, over the top, unethical way.
Yeah, I really like that. So, I guess we can kind of say that ethical sales actually doesn't slow growth, it kind of strengthens it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. If we look at it in that lens, I think a lot more of us would appreciate it a bit better. So, Pete, this has been such a refreshing conversation around sales, and I thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries. It's been fun. Thanks.
And what stands out for me is that the strongest growth doesn't come from pressure, it comes from clarity and alignment. And for anyone listening, this episode isn't about becoming more persuasive. It's about becoming more honest, more grounded, more confident in the value that you bring. This is the Business Rebellion, and this is what it sounds like to do business differently.